and put aside all the morals, the values that you have been taught. I'm here today to challenge that notion, to submit to you strongly that politics can be clean, politics can be decent, politics can attract people who genuinely love the country, who genuinely can eschew corruption. And it depends on you and I. If we continue to brand politics as a dirty game which should be left for the bad guys, our future will continue to be in peril. Our nation will keep being destroyed. And we are the same people who will bear the brunt. We will be the victims of the bad guys that we have left to go and conduct national affairs. Think about it. Think about it. So, you want to stay in the church and possibly become a pastor or an evangelist, take over from Prophet Martin, or rise to be his assistant, and stay in the church. The church, what is your collection every Sunday? Even if you put it together, every month, at the end of the year, what is the net worth? Even if you put all the churches in Ghana together. And yet, the people who are going to manage all the taxes that you collect, see how our pastors struggle to get us to even pay tax, the 10% tax. How they struggle. When it's collection time, they must go into their best creativity with all kinds of songs, assure us of all kinds of blessings, tell us that the more you give, the more you will be blessed. Press down, shaking down, run over, and all of that. See what they go through. But the politicians, they have a law. If you don't pay your taxes, you can end up in jail. So it's compulsory. Indeed, a lot of the taxes, you don't even have control. You don't see that it is being collected. Before you receive your salary, the taxman at GRA has collected the government's share already. Then there's VAT and there are all the other indirect taxes. Whatever you are buying and paying for, the taxes are inbuilt. Then put the taxes aside. Look at the natural resources God has blessed us with. Which pastor controls our diamond, our gold, our bauxite, our oil, our timber, the land, the lithium that we have discovered recently? No matter how powerful you are as a man of God, and the vision that you have seen, even about what we may discover again after we discover lithium, that's all you can do. See a vision about it. But you don't control it. Under the Ghanaian Constitution, all our natural resources are vested in the president. The politicians control all of these resources and all of these assets. So see how serious the matter is. Then the good guys say they want to stay in church. The people who we can trust that they won't be corrupt, they won't steal these assets, they won't divert them. They say that they want to leave politics, such a serious business, a life and death situation. Because if these resources are not managed well, it means your hospitals won't be built. You will not get equipment in those hospitals. And 19 people will die at Kolegu because they are dialysis patients. You are not going to get good schools. Your roads will be bad, it will lead to accidents. And the list goes on and on. So for such a serious matter, a grave issue, why is it that the children of God, young Christians, want to live it with people who have no morals, have no values, have no Christian training, have no Christian upbringing? What are we doing to our country, to ourselves, and what are we even doing to the Almighty? Didn't the Almighty say that He gives us dominion over everything? Didn't He say that we are the chosen generation and that we should be in charge, we should run affairs? So please, those of you who are young and ambitious, there is nothing wrong with being ambitious, with hoping to get into politics and to change the narrative. My mentor, Professor John Evans Atamels, God bless his soul, he defied the notion. And I recall people teasing him that, oh, this man will go and turn the castle, then we haven't moved to Flagstaff House or Jubilee House as it's called now. He will turn it into a house of prayer. And even some Christians thought that was something to joke about and to tease him about. What's wrong if the seat of government becomes a house of prayer? What's wrong with that? And under Professor Mills's tenure, we saw the difference. We saw the decency. We saw morality at the center, integrity at the center of leadership. So, why are we trying to build a Chinese wall that doesn't exist between Christians going into leadership and still making an impact? If you look at the situation in Africa, and Africa's number one challenge, which is corruption, how bad leaders have diverted state resources for themselves and their families. If we must change the paradigm, as your team suggests, changing the political paradigm, a new dawn, then the change that African politics needs is for young Christians, good Christians, Christians who emulate Christ, the virtues of Christ, the virtues of purity, of holiness, of integrity, of fellow feeling. What did Christ say when He was asked, what is the summation of the matter? All of these your gospels. Tell us one thing, which is the foundation. What did Christ tell them? Love your neighbor as yourself. If you love your neighbor as yourself, as a political leader, will you engage in corrupt acts? Will you take bad decisions? That money that you are diverting into a secret bank account, if you love your neighbor as yourself, and you know that that money could have built a hospital that will save somebody's life, that money can be used to buy an MRI machine which will save somebody's life, you won't do it. And who are those who must get into politics to love their neighbors as themselves, to love the country? It certainly must be the Christians. So let us do away with that notion that some way, somehow, politics is such a dirty business. It is those we have allowed to play it, and those we have ceded the space to. And nature abhors vacuum. If you create a vacuum, if all the good guys suddenly say that it is not a decent sport, and so they will not participate in it, you leave it for the bad guys will have a field day. having this discussion, this mentorship program with young people at this time. What is the biggest discussion in Africa today? It is the uprising in Kenya, isn't it? Where the Gen Zs have taught the politicians where real power lies. And it has reverberated across many African countries. And African leaders are now afraid of young people. They said, hey, we didn't know these Gen Zs are that fearless, are that dangerous. And we didn't know that this is what they do on their social media. And suddenly, African leaders are now hosting X Spaces. They are suddenly seeking audience with young people. But you see, if we must usher a new dawn in Ghana, I would suggest that we don't have to wait for things to be that bad before we start listening to young people. We must start engaging young people now. And that is the lesson we must learn from Kenya. The politicians in Kenya were not listening. They thought they could keep doing whatever they want and have their way. They have now been forced to listen. Anytime Honorable Sosu will tell you, when we meet our Kenyan colleagues, they were always laughing at us. Our salaries were not even up to 1/10 of their salaries. They are among the best paid politicians in the world. And they were always laughing at us that we don't know our value and all. Thanks to what the young people in Kenya did. Now, they themselves, without prompting, are slashing their salaries. They are calling us asking, oh, what is yours? We want to peg it. Now we don't want to laugh at you again. We want to be so that we can tell the Gen Zs that, oh, if you go to Ghana, and other places, it's the same that we are now taking. They have dissolved 47 agencies. A few days ago, the president sacked his entire cabinet because the youth are demanding action. They are demanding change. So that brings me to a very, 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 very fundamental point. That often young people confuse leadership with position. You don't have to be a politician, properly so-called, having been elected, having an office to make an impact and to influence change. And that is why what has happened this week in Ghana is the beginning of our Kenyan situation. If the politicians refuse to learn, and if the politicians refuse to listen, how many weeks have I been talking about the obnoxious, obscene, unpatriotic state capture, which has now reached everywhere? Are you aware judges are in court fighting to save their boundaries? 13 have already been demolished. Parks and Gardens lands, gone. They go to work, somebody shows up, it's now for me. Embassies have not been spared. Bulgaria embassy, demolished. South African High Commission. Then you have prisons. Ghana, state capture. Where are we going? We didn't read the scripture, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? The only time in the New Testament I saw God use very strong language was that rabbi who felt that he had so much money, he's going to make Mary amass wealth. What was he told? Thou fool, tomorrow your soul shall be required of thee. And you see, see some of my colleagues in politics, they think that people don't reason, they think that people are not logical. So suddenly state assets are not profitable, they are not worth it. Let's sell it. It's not good for all of us. Then as they say it's not good for all of us, let's sell it. They then turn around and they want to buy it for themselves. It's not good for all of us, but it's good for you. I mean, how does this make sense? How do you expect young people to buy this? And then the other question is, if you have the ideas, you have the acumen to transform these state assets, to make them profitable, why do we pay you to go to cabinet, to serve in the government? Isn't it to bring these your ideas to bear? So why is it that you can only bring these ideas to bear when you have bought the state asset and it's for you? That's when now you can manage it, when it's your private asset. Is that love your neighbor as yourself? No. Is that patriotism? No. So I want to salute Ghanaian workers. Look, what happened yesterday is monumental. If you check our history, the last time anything happened like that was in 1948. The 1948 riots leading to independence were all workers. You saw the statements. TUC, Federation of Labour, Ghana Medical Association, Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association, mortuary workers, utility workers, judges, GPRTU. The Ghana Land Force. You know, I mean, I don't remember when we saw anything like that. Because the people are saying enough is enough. Workers' contributions build those hotels. When we go on pensions, we expect these hotels, the dividends, the profits, the yields to take care of us when we cannot work. If it's not good for all of us, it's not good for workers, it's not good for the old folks, how does it become good for you, politician? And you saw how, in a few minutes, you saw how the buyer ran away from it. This is a buyer who has been debating me all over the place, taking me on, saying no matter what I do, he will buy it. When he saw the force of the people, the statements from all over, he himself ran and said, Then I didn't know Smith can work so late. I got a call at 10:30 p.m. that, hey, Honorable, you don't know what has happened. Madam Elizabeth Ohini has just issued a statement that they are no longer selling. They've terminated the transaction. The power of the people. So, real power, if you read our constitution, it says sovereignty resides in the people. Real power is in your hands. You have the power. But I think for too long, we have been beholden to a few politicians. And the politicians think they can do whatever they want. Look, the work I have been doing in Parliament, if I list the billions that we could have saved if we had done just a quarter of what we did yesterday as a country. I'm glad pastors are here. When the pastors consulted on this national cathedral, look at what pastors have done with very little. You think if the pastors were consulted, this is the approach, this is the model that will have been adopted? $58 million of our taxes. And you know, because of the big news yesterday, the media hasn't yet reported what happened in the chamber. I filed a question yesterday for the tourism minister to come tell us how much private donations have been collected for the National Cathedral. So the 339 million you heard last week, that is just taxes. Yesterday, the tourism minister revealed in Parliament, following my urgent question, that CD donations, 33.2 million CD donations. And then there are US operations, US fundraising, $702,000. Convert that. So you need to add that to the 339 million. You think if Prophet had that money, we won't see a beautiful edifice. is because the Christians are not speaking. We are not standing up. We are not talking. We are not getting involved. We are not going in there. Get in there. Identify the politicians who are not working in the national interest. Even if it's me, and at the point I get corrupted and I deviate, come after me, contest me, take me out of there. Because remember what I told you, it's about billions of taxes. It's about unlimited resources. Our gold, our diamond, our oil. This continent should not be poor. We should be the richest continent because God loves us. God bless this continent than any other continent. I mean, what do they have in Europe? Is it their bad weather, the snow, the horrible climatic conditions? What do they have there? Virtually everything they need for their technologies, their survival, is from this continent. 70% of the world's natural resources are in Africa. Why should we be poor? Why should our young people be hungry? Why should they lack opportunities? Why should they be struggling? It is a leadership problem. We have ceded the space for the wrong people to go into leadership. Wrong people, clueless people, visionless people, people who don't fear God, who don't love your neighbor as yourself. And if you can't love your neighbor as yourself, as Christ said, that's the golden rule. You have absolutely no business going into leadership. Absolutely no business. Absolutely no business. This morning, I was asking a panel on TV3 that when was the last time you heard of the current generation of leaders buying land and preserving it, what they call land banks, and preserving it for the future, for future expansion? When was the last time? Have you ever heard that in the news since you were born? Our generation of leaders, we only put at selling. And half of the time we are selling to ourselves, or people are fronting on our behalf. When Kwame Nkrumah was establishing the ministries, he knew that civil servants have to stay close to the ministries. He secured land banks. So built a few bungalows, and then there was extra space for expansion. Because as the population grows and more recruitments are done, they must live in cantonments, in Labone, in Ridge. They should be close to the ministries. Everything is on sale now. We are even selling forests. We are finding forests in people's wills. They are willing it to their nephews forever. Incredible. Parks and gardens. When will our generation say that, look, these are the population dynamics. The next 10 years, the next 20 years, we will no longer be 33 million. We will be 50 million. This is what we have put aside for the next generation. These are the lands. These are the... Look, the last time we were asking a particular minister to even give us the list of state assets under their watch, they don't know. They will tell you, oh, it's a problem with data in this country, poor record keeping, all alive. When it is time to sell, they know where to find them to sell. That is why I am happy that I'm sponsoring, as I conclude. I'm so excited that I'm sponsoring a private members bill, which we are calling the Protection of Public Assets Bill, which will prohibit, it will totally ban all politicians, including politically exposed persons, whether you are a wife or a spouse or a daughter or son or cousin, nephew, girlfriend, side chicks, whatever. Once you are politically exposed, you are not allowed to go anywhere near the purchase of state assets. Because those state assets should not even be sold in the first place. And the law is going to, for the first time, make it compulsory for all state assets to be published, to be put on a public database. As young people, you must know what Ghana has. We are all equal citizens. We all have a stake in the destiny of this country. How many bungalows do we have? We must know. How many state lands do we have? We must know. Our forest cover, what is left? We must know. And we must collectively protect what is remaining. And that will require activist citizens. If you look at my own story, I have never been intimidated by those who say, oh, you are too young to speak out. At 17 years, I was contesting for trustee of the Greater Accra Student Representative Council. That's where I met Francis Xavier Sosu. Unfortunately for Sosu, when he was losing all his elections, I was winning all my elections. But I'm happy that he is now on the path of winning. And that's why you see when he won, he's made such a great impact. So it is important that you never give up. When you lose, it teaches you how to do things in the winning way, in a different way. And you may only be losing on paper, but actually you may be the winner even though you were not declared victorious. And that's how come I know that John Dumelo, when he finally wins in 2024, he will also be a great MP. So be activists, young Christians. Don't just take anything and accept it. The country you envisage and the country you want to have, you can start building it now. At the age of 25, when I heard that a minister of state was buying his bungalow, I went to the Supreme Court. Can you believe that? My friend, Dr. Mani Boma and I, 17 years ago, or 18 years ago, we went to the Supreme Court. And it is those principles. And you see, the beauty about some of these activist steps that you take, it puts you on the path of principle, you understand? Can you imagine if after going to the Supreme Court, I come into government and I serve for 8 years? You think that what I have done to the NDP, if I ever bought a state asset, or I ever diverted any taxes, do you know what will have happened to me by now? So,
and that's what breaks my heart. But then again, we cannot all be farmers, but we can all get into agro-business, which is adding value to the things that we farmers reproduce. And so for those of you who can't be farmers, there's so many things you can add to what we produce to make, Ghana a better place. And so it saddens my heart whenever I travel outside Accra, I go to the north, I go to some parts of Volta, and so on and so forth. And you realize the tons of onions and tomatoes that are being imported in this country. And I ask myself, why is that so? Like, it's not possible. Why is this happening? And so we can sit down and say, look, let's give ourselves 5-10 years. Let us invest ourselves or invest our time into agro-business so that we can stop importing the food items that we bring into this country, because it is, I don't say it is possible, but it is something that we can do. The reason why I don't say it's possible because of the political slogan, but in this case, I would say that it is possible when it comes to agriculture. It is possible for us to all do it. It is possible for the young ones to get into agric and, of course, get into politics. But one of the reasons why you should get into politics is to influence policy, is to make and amend certain laws that will affect us. Macron was president at 39 years. You can also be president at 40 years. You can be president at 41 or 42. If you see what is going on in parliament, the youth are taking over. And it's about time that we, the youth, also take over this country, because we see things the way the youth see things. Let us all get into politics for the right reason. And please, before you leave here today, I'm still soliciting for funds for my campaign. So you can drop 1 CD or 2 CDs for me so that I can use it to fund my campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.